Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Let me start with a question that might surprise you. Have you ever wondered why in almost every corner of the United States, whether it's Silicon Valley, Wall Street, or a small town hospital, you'll find Indian immigrants not just surviving but thriving? Why is it that this community, despite being a tiny fraction of America's population, has produced some of the wealthiest, most successful, and most influential individuals in the country? Why do we so often hear about Indian CEOs, Indian doctors, Indian engineers, Indian entrepreneurs, and even Indian politicians shaping the future of the most powerful nation in the world? It almost feels like a mystery, doesn't it? How did people who came from a faraway land, many of them with limited resources, suddenly rise to become the highest earning immigrant group in America? How did they build billion-dollar companies, dominate the technology sector, and become leaders in healthcare, academia, and business? And more importantly, what does this say about the Indian mindset, the Indian family structure, and the hidden formula that transforms their struggles into success stories? Tonight, we are going to uncover this. We are going to peel back the layers of history, culture, education, family values, and personal ambition that explain why Indian immigrants become so rich in America. And by the end of this speech, you might even discover lessons that apply to your own life, no matter where you come from. Now let's dive into the heart of this mystery. First, we must begin with a startling fact. According to US Census and Pew Research data, Indian Americans are the wealthiest ethnic group in the United States, with a median household income that is almost double the national average. While the average American household earns around $70,000 per year, Indian households are pulling in well over $120,000. Not only that, Indians are also among the most highly educated, with nearly 75% holding a bachelor's degree or higher, compared to the US national average of about 3. These are not just numbers, they are proof of a remarkable pattern. But numbers alone don't tell us the whole story. So let's ask, why does this happen? Part of the answer begins in India itself. For decades, India has been a country of contrasts: immense poverty on one hand and extraordinary talent on the other. The Indian education system, especially in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, what we call STEM, has been producing some of the brightest minds in the world. From the Indian Institutes of Technology, IITs, to top medical schools and research institutions, India has built an academic culture that emphasizes discipline, competition, and resilience. Imagine a country where millions of students sit for extremely competitive exams, where only the top 1% make it through. Those who survive this rigorous system are already trained to handle pressure, to chase excellence, and to adapt quickly to challenges. Now, when these students come to America, often on scholarships, work visas, or through family sponsorship, they arrive with an education system behind them that has already instilled discipline, hard work, and sacrifice. They are like marathon runners who have been training in harsh conditions, and suddenly when they arrive in a country with far more opportunities and resources, they sprint ahead. But education is only one part of the puzzle. The real engine behind Indian immigrant wealth in America is family culture. You see, in many parts of the world, success is often seen as an individual pursuit. But in Indian families, success is collective. Parents invest heavily in their children's education, sometimes sacrificing their own comfort. It is common for Indian parents to work multiple jobs, save every penny, and push their children toward high-paying professions like medicine, engineering, finance, and technology. Even in America, this mindset continues. Indian parents often live frugally, avoiding unnecessary expenses, and encouraging their children to focus on education and professional careers. And once those children succeed, they don't just succeed for themselves, they succeed for the whole family. That sense of duty, of carrying forward the family's honor and sacrifices, is a powerful motivator that drives Indian immigrants to keep pushing until they achieve financial security and eventually wealth. Now let's add another dimension to this story: immigrant mentality. Think about this for a second. Moving to a foreign country is never easy. It means leaving behind your home, your culture, your familiar surroundings, sometimes even your family. It means starting over from zero, in a place where you may not fully understand the language, the laws, or the system. For most people, this would be intimidating. But for immigrants, especially Indians, this hardship becomes a fuel. They know that if they have taken the risk of moving across the world, they cannot afford to fail. Failure is not an option, because they often carry the dreams of their entire family back home. This immigrant mentality makes them work harder, take fewer risks with money, and focus on stability. You will notice that many Indian immigrants are not reckless with their finances. They save, invest wisely, and avoid debt as much as possible. While some groups may chase luxury early on, Indians often prioritize building assets, buying homes, investing in education, and starting businesses. Over time, this leads to wealth accumulation. And let's not forget, Indian immigrants often enter sectors of the economy that are not just high-paying, but also recession-proof. Look at healthcare. Thousands of Indian doctors, nurses, and pharmacists are working across America, providing critical services that will always be in demand. Then look at technology. From Sundar Pichai at Google to Satya Nadella at Microsoft, Indians have risen to the very top of the tech industry. This is not an accident. This is the result of a mindset that combines technical expertise with relentless discipline. But here's where the story gets even more interesting. Indian immigrants don't just enter existing industries, they also create new ones. The entrepreneurial spirit runs deep in the community, from running small businesses like gas stations and motels to founding billion-dollar startups. Indians in America are constantly building wealth through ownership. Think of companies like Sun Microsystems, founded by Vinod Khosla, or Bose Corporation, founded by Amar Bose. These are stories of individuals who not only achieved personal success, but also created jobs, innovation, and entire industries. At this point, you might be thinking, okay, education, family, and immigrant mentality explain part of it. But surely there's more to the story. And you would be right. There is one more secret ingredient that often goes unnoticed: networking within the community. Indian immigrants rarely walk alone. They build strong community networks, often centered around cultural organizations, temples, professional associations, and alumni groups. These networks become pipelines for jobs, internships, mentorship, and business opportunities. If one Indian gets into a company, it often opens the door for others. If one family starts a business, others in the community rally around to support it. This sense of collective progress is incredibly powerful in building long-term wealth. Now, let me add a layer of suspense here. If Indians are so successful in America, does that mean every Indian immigrant is rich? The answer is no. There are many who struggle, many who face discrimination, and many who work long hours in low-paying jobs just to survive. But the difference lies in the trajectory. Even those who start small often have a long-term vision. They work hard, save, and push their children into higher education. And within one generation, the family rises from working class to middle class, and often to upper class. This rapid upward mobility is what makes the Indian immigrant story so remarkable. So far, we've talked about the foundations: education, family values, immigrant mentality, career choices, and community networks. But the real magic happens when all these forces combine. Imagine a young Indian student who grew up in a disciplined household, trained in a competitive education system, motivated by family sacrifices, and now living in America where opportunities are abundant. That individual is almost destined for success, not because of luck, but because every aspect of their background has prepared them to seize the moment. And let's be honest, America itself plays a role in this story. The United States is a land of opportunity, but opportunity is only valuable to those who know how to use it. Indians arrive with a toolkit: discipline, ambition, and resilience that allows them to maximize what America has to offer. While others may take freedom and resources for granted, Indians often see them as treasures not to be wasted. As we move deeper into this speech, I want you to keep asking yourself, what lessons can we learn from this story? Is this just about Indians, or is it about a formula for success that anyone can apply? Because the truth is, the qualities that make Indian immigrants rich in America are not unique to one community. They are universal traits that can be cultivated by anyone willing to embrace discipline, sacrifice, and vision. But before we get to that, let's go even deeper. Let's examine the role of history, the role of policy, and the role of global change in shaping the destiny of Indian immigrants in America. Because this is not just a personal story, it's also a geopolitical story, a story about how two nations, India and the United States, became linked through waves of migration, education, and innovation. And this is where the suspense grows even more. Because when you look closely, you realize that the rise of Indian immigrants in America is not just about money or status, it's about influence. It's about shaping the future of technology, medicine, business, and even politics. In other words, this is not just the story of why Indians become rich in America. It is the story of how a once colonized people have now become leaders in the most powerful country on earth. And with that, let us continue to explore this fascinating journey in the next part, where we will uncover the deeper reasons, the hidden challenges, and the long-term implications of Indian wealth and influence in America. But the question still lingers: is that the whole story? Or is there something deeper, something hidden beneath the surface that explains why Indian immigrants don't just get by in America, but often rise to the very top? To truly understand this, we must look at history. The story of Indian success in America didn't begin yesterday. It has roots that go back decades. In the 1960s, when the U.S. passed the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965, it opened the door for highly skilled professionals from countries like India to come to America. Unlike earlier waves of immigrants from other parts of the world, many of these Indians were doctors, engineers, and academics. People who already had advanced training. America needed their skills, and India had a surplus of talented professionals looking for opportunities abroad. It was a match made not in heaven, but in history. This first wave set the tone. They were not coming as unskilled laborers, they were coming as highly educated professionals. They entered with strong salaries, stable jobs, and respect in society. Their children grew up with privilege that other immigrant communities sometimes lack. Over time, this created a cycle. The children of these professionals went on to pursue even higher education, often in elite universities, and they in turn entered prestigious careers. In sociology, this is called selective migration, a phenomenon where the immigrants who arrive are already highly skilled and motivated, giving their community an immediate advantage. But there is another layer. Indians didn't just rely on education or opportunity, they brought with them a philosophy of life that shaped their approach to success. Whether influenced by Hinduism, Sikhism, Islam, Jainism, or Christianity, Indian immigrants often carried spiritual values that emphasized discipline, humility, patience, and long-term vision. In a fast-paced, instant gratification culture like America, this long-term mindset made them stand out. While others chased quick rewards, Indians were willing to study for 10 years, work long hours, save for decades, and slowly build generational wealth. Think about it. An Indian doctor in America might spend their 20s and early 30s buried in study and training, but by their 40s, they are established in a high-paying, stable career. An Indian engineer might spend their early years working 70-hour weeks in Silicon Valley, but by their 40s and 50s, they are senior executives, entrepreneurs, or investors. Success comes later, but it comes strong and lasting. Now let us explore something rarely discussed: adaptability. One reason Indian immigrants succeed in America is because they know how to adapt without losing their identity. They learn English quickly, adopt professional etiquette, and understand how to navigate American systems. Yet, they also preserve their traditions, family dinners, religious festivals, cultural values. This balance allows them to feel at home in both worlds, rather than lost in between. And because they are comfortable in their identity, they project confidence in their careers and communities. Another critical element is risk-taking, combined with security-seeking. On the surface, these seem like opposites, but Indian immigrants master the art of balancing them. For example, many start their careers in safe, high-paying jobs, doctors, engineers, software developers. But once they feel financially secure, they take bold, entrepreneurial risks. That's why you see Indians running not only tech startups, but also franchises, hotels, and real estate businesses. They know when to play safe and when to take a leap, which is a powerful formula for wealth creation. We also cannot ignore the role of marriage and family structures. Indian immigrants often marry within their community, which keeps wealth and resources circulating among Indians. Dual-income households are common, where both husband and wife are professionals. This means instead of one salary, many Indian families have two high-paying incomes, allowing them to save and invest aggressively. Children grow up in households where education and ambition are normalized, creating a cycle of success that repeats across generations. Now let's bring in some real examples. Sundar Pichai, CEO of Google, and Satya Nadella, CEO of Microsoft, are not just individual success stories, they represent the peak of a community that consistently produces leaders. But beyond billion-dollar CEOs, there are countless Indian doctors running hospitals, professors shaping universities, small business owners creating local jobs, and entrepreneurs building new companies. Each story adds to the collective reputation of Indian immigrants as one of the most successful groups in America. However, this success story is not without challenges. Many Indian immigrants face racism, cultural barriers, and stereotypes. They are sometimes seen as outsiders, and their accents or traditions can make integration difficult. Yet, instead of letting these challenges break them, Indians often turn them into motivation. They work harder to prove themselves. They over-deliver in their professions, and they let results speak louder than words. This resilience is another hidden reason behind their wealth. But here comes the big question: what does all this mean for America? Why does the success of Indian immigrants matter to the whole country? The answer is simple. Indian immigrants are not just making themselves rich, they are contributing massively to the American economy, innovation, and culture. They are starting companies that employ thousands of Americans, They are advancing medicine that saves American lives. They are building technologies that shape the global future. In other words, the success of Indians in America is also America's success. And yet, beyond economics, there is a symbolic meaning here. Just a few decades ago, India was seen as a poor, struggling country.